Going slow.
Yeah. Verizon.
All right, great. Now let's get started. All right, so I'd like to call the May 17th, 2023 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. In attendance, myself, Chairman David Gerstenhaber. We have Supervisors Johnson and Torres. Also in attendance is Township Solicitor Guy Donatelli, our MS4 consultant Andrew Toilea, Township Historical Commission member Paul Agassi, Township Operations Manager Jeff Eastburn, Township Operations Controller and Office Manager Melissa Ortega, and Township Secretary Stacy Hollis. And there is one member of the public. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for that. I would like to now open the meeting for public comment. This first public comment session may include any comments relating to tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state your name and whether you are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer in the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. So do we have any public comment to start the meeting off? Not hearing any. Let's move on to the approval of minutes.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the April 19th, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries 3-0.
This is, Treasurer's report. Am I supposed to just introduce or just read it?
Just introduce Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa.
Okay, Melissa, I'm just going to introduce our treasurer to give the treasurer's report. Melissa Ortega, please.
Hi, guys. The April 2023 Treasurer's Report includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $46,889.55. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $20,515.25. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $5,608.46. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $4,420. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $0. The Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $2,641,649.56.
Okay. Proposed motion. I make a motion that the board approve the April 2023 Treasurer's Report as presented by Melissa Ortega.
I'll second it.
Second by Jim. Any discussion? One quick thought. I was thinking about this earlier today. When I was looking at the interest income, and my question is there a certain dollar amount? I know at the reorg meeting, I think in the beginning of January, we approved Piglet, and if that's the right way you pronounce it, it sounds like a little pig. And we also used this other bank, Trost is the second bank. But
No,
I guess,
we use
okay.
we use Pliget.
Yep.
And Fulton Bank for a payroll.
I guess my question is, if there's $2.6 million right now in the account, and you look at an issue that's been going on with a lot of banks nationally, and a lot of rates are, for example, I have an account with Wells Fargo, they pay 0.35. I also have a treasury-backed money market account, for example, with T. Rowe Price, which is just as safe, if not safer, which pays 4.35%. If you take the difference of 4%, I'm not saying the entire 2.6 million, that's over $110,000 in free money. And I'm kind of wondering, if there comes a point in time, we may not be able to do it now, but at at next January's meeting, or to take even a portion of that. And to, if rates stay like the way they are, it's just a thought.
Just for an investment piece, right?
It's not even invest.
So
Yeah.
nothing will come
Yeah.
out of that.
And they have check writing privileges. I mean, there's got to be a certain amount that we don't use that just sits in the account. You know, maybe it's $1 million that just sits there that we don't use
Right.
throughout the year.
Exactly.
And even if it's $1 million, it's $40,000 in free money, in my opinion. That's
Yeah, so Pliget is just an investment fund and they bank with a bunch of different banks. And they're just a center hub, as I call it, and how I understand it. However, like for next month's treasurer's report, you'll see I transferred most of that money away to the emergency services fund, to the open space fund, to the capital reserve fund. So that money comes in through the real estate transfer tax. And then once I receive it, I have to break it down. So you're running a month behind than what you're actually seeing.
We'll take a look at it.
yeah, I know. It was just something I thought about. I understand, but you know, $2.6 million earning 0.3%, you know, like I said, even if it's $1 million and we open up a few different accounts, a general fund account with, you know, and I'm just using T Row because I'm familiar with it, which is a treasury backed money market. Again, treasury backed, not bank backed.
Yeah,
Where there's a $250,000 security. That's another thing we should check into too, is that,
absolutely.
yeah, that's easily $40,000. And you can move money from that account within, and you'll get it back into one of the banks within 2 days as needed. It's just an
We
idea.
might be able to wire it same day.
Exactly.
We might have to pay
Yeah.
$10 to wire, but.
Yeah, very good point. However, a lot of our money's already like from the organization meeting, we dictate how we're spending our money throughout the year from the proposed income. So yeah, there might be a little bit of access that we can do that too. But I'll look into it.
Yeah, I'll follow up. It's just an idea. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great idea.
Oh, well, that was a discussion. Sorry about that. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Nay. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, everybody.
I would like to hand this over to Ron Reagan and Jeff Eastburn, or just Jeff for now, and talk about the update on the 2023 road program.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Both Ron Reagan and I met with our paver, Long's Paving, on Monday, and the following schedule was developed that you have in your books. And I'm happy to report, if all goes well and the weather cooperates, we're hoping to start milling on or about June 19th, and then to be finished by July 4th or July 5th. And this includes Old Schoolhouse Road, the entire length, Ways Run, Johnson Lane, and a small portion of Hessmore Road, from the New London Township line to what I would call the easternmost entrance of Wingate Drive. That just ties up things that we had done a couple years ago on Hess Mill. The next piece of work that we'll be doing, we had a number of trees removed along Old Schoolhouse Road. We'll be removing those stumps next and working with that. And we did have the opportunity to speak to one of the major landowners on Old Schoolhouse on Monday, Mr. Brown. And we will certainly keep him apprised of our tentative schedule and updates.
So those dates were June 19th through July 5th?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
So we just all have to hope for great weather.
All right. Great. Well, it's this time of year, you have a better chance of good weather than I think when last year we were in the fall. There seems to be like a bunch of, we had a jag of rain there for a while. So,
And Dave, one of the things two small things I wanted to bring up. Working with one of our residents and Ron Reagan, we've come across another infiltration pit, drainage pit in the development that we will be responsible for, that we feel has failed. So again, it's going to be a long process of how do we fix it, the engineering behind it, and then bidding it out. You know, we're thinking of probably next year for that,
okay.
along with the one in Thompson Estates. Now, one subject it's been hanging over us for a while, and if Guy Donatelli can hear me, he'll probably talk about this in a little while. Mackey Court. We've worked with the residents. They do like our plan of attack. It would be 2 residents that would be affected. And Mr. Donatelli has come up with a draft easement agreement, and he can explain that either now or later during his report.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Whatever your preference as to timing is, Mr. Eastburn is fine with me.
Why don't we handle it during the actual solicitor's report? It might be the most logical place to do it.
Just go down the list.
Yeah, just go right down the list.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
For the zoning officers report, the report was compiled by the zoning officer, includes a number of permits processed for the month of April. In the month of April, there were 7 permits issued, $2,763 in permit fees, $0 in miscellaneous fees, and $0 in recreation and open space, and $0 in impact fees were collected. In all, total of 20 inspections were performed.
Real quick question. I noticed that there was 2 pool house and pavilions on the same date for the same dollar amount, different permit number, and same fee. I just want to make sure that that was not, that is correct.
And a duplicate.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a duplicate with a different.
Are you talking about Borden Way and Peacedale Road?
Yeah, 146 Peacedale. It comes up twice within the
That would be 2 different inspections.
on the same day.
It could be, yes, sir.
Okay.
They try and line them up that way, one for the pool bonding and then the other for the rough plumbing. Yes.
I agree with that, Jeff.
Just checking. As many of you know, we are planning with the help of a few people here, a number of people that are with us today, Stacy, Jeff, Dawn, Veronica, and a lot of feedback from other people as well. We're planning a fall, we don't have an official name yet, Franklin Fun Day, Franklin Fall Fest on September 16th. We'll hammer out the name. We'll take votes too. But no, it'll be at Crossan Park, and what we're looking at doing is to incorporate a lot of what Jeff wanted to do pre-COVID, and that is have the fire trucks, a lot of the emergency people there, EMT, maybe other things like a helicopter, and the help of the Avon Grove firehouse to put on some events, but also have little pavilion areas where we would be, Franklin Township would be, hopefully someone from the pro or 2 people from the pro committee would be, represent, explaining what they do. I'd love to have Paul Lagasse and or somebody from his group from Harb to give a little bit of history and maybe hand out some pamphlets, like something from the neighborhood of 12 to 5 p.m. Right now I've talked to, we probably have at least 2, maybe 3 or more food vendors. Buy sandwiches, whatever you want. Also looking at getting at least 2 musicians throughout the day, small little band areas, a lot of fun things for the kids, a bounce house. So that's coming up sooner. And then we're just going to we've been meeting about that probably every 3 weeks or so about trying to finalize things, and we're going to solicit some business from some of our contacts, some of our vendors, local community members, people that have businesses in the township, to get their support. And in return, we would advertise for them. We would put them on I guess it's called a rack card, as well as other advertising that we would do for this event. And, maybe gold, silver, bronze, $100, $50, $25, whatever it might be, $75, $50, whatever it might be. And for that, we're probably looking at getting a mailing out within roughly 3 weeks to the various vendors in the community, and get some money back to help support the expenditures of this event, things like porta potties, et cetera. And so that's what's going on. It should be a really fun event. Dawn, we had what's the guy we had last year? The metal worker.
Carrie.
Yeah, we did some metal work, and so we're taking a lot what Dawn did last year, what Jeff wanted to do a few years ago, some of other ideas that we've had, and bring it onto one big fun event in the fall. With that, there will be some upfront money likely needed, simple things. I mean, I checked into t-shirts. I don't think it's probably worth a t-shirt right now, maybe in future events, but with that comes risk. But just but mailings and marketing and stuff like that, we might need a little bit of upfront money as we get, and then we'll get the money back, hopefully, from the solicitation from the advertisers. So what I'm hoping to do is get the board's authorization for, I don't know, maybe $1,500 to get started. And like I said, I'm sure we'll get that money back, if not more, so that doesn't have to come out of pocket. So that's the motion. So I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors authorize expenditure of $1,500 so that Supervisor Torres and his committee can start planning this event.
I'll second that.
Seconded by David. Discussion? Okay, and any feedback along the way, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Okay, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Report. We have a couple of issues and bullet points here. So let's start with Jeff and some of the cross and park vandalism that's been happening.
Sure. Over the past 2 weeks or so, we've been hit, I would say, 3 times with vandalism. One was a picnic table was destroyed in the lower pavilion. 2 friends of Crossan Park wanted to put up $400 as a reward with approval from the state police. Unfortunately, no one came forward with any information. Last Monday, I'd received a call from Steve Hollis early and witnessed someone had been out the afternoon before and turfed the lower pavilion, ran over probably approximately 14 tube trees in the lower right meadow, and drug one of the soccer goalposts out into the parking lot. So we did the right thing. I ended up calling the state police. They did make a report. Unfortunately, they don't have any leads right now. The state police officer does, excuse me, please. The state police officer believes that a lot of the damage was caused by a four-wheeler, by the evidence he was able to get. And I know, based on what we saw and just experienced in the past, they do come up from the back of the park or through Flint Hill Road. We did take the opportunity to look at the video footage for that day and saw no ATVs come in and out. And just through my own little mini investigation, We had someone flying a drone, interestingly enough. So we know that the damage occurred sometime after 4:30 PM and before 8 PM. So kind of a short window there. In the daylight,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Later that day, believe it or not, and I'm going to be looking to Greg Sachs to fill in the holes here. Greg Sachs was out that same day repairing the tube trees and had noticed a bunch of young men in the lower left meadow. And to cut the story short, they had their own little fight club out there around 3 o'clock that day. So our best thing to do that Greg and I did was we stayed away, we stayed up front, not to alert the guys in the back. So 2 police officers came, got there in time. I let them go down, so did Greg. And then we went down a couple minutes later. And from what I could see, there were cars from Delaware and Pennsylvania. It's hard for me to tell with age anymore, but I would say the age of the young men were between 16 and 20. So the most that could be done at the time is that we trespass them. That's the most we could do at that moment. The police explained to me that they take down their information, take down their license plate numbers, and if they come back to the park and they see them, they're in big time trouble. But that's as far as the police recommended we could go.
So Jeff, they weren't doing any damage to the park, but only to themselves?
Correct, sir.
Okay, all right.
And believe it or not, this is,
But they've been banned from the park, just to be
Yes.
clear? Okay. Just
Yep.
want to make sure.
so if the police catch them back, it won't be good for them. The other thing, just a couple of other things I've been trying to do. When I was meeting with one of the police officers out there, had a very nice resident come up to me, talking to the police officer, and she said, "Jeffrey, I had video of a 4-wheeler." I thought she meant the day before. After talking with her, it was a year ago. So I've been trying to get the word out if someone sees something to say something. So in front of Supervisor Gerstenhaber and Johnson, I've got a sign that I developed and worked with the state police.
Zoom in on me. So the sign says, if you see something, say something. The Avondale and provides the Avondale State Police Barracks phone number. Doesn't look like the camera zooming in.
Can you zoom?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So there we go. It's a little blue sign here that will provide some information. There we go.
As I always do, I just felt it best to run it past the state police. They're fine with it. The great thing about that is I'm going to work on the pricing, of course. I'm thinking 18 by 24 inches. It'll be sign grade. We can put one up out at Banffshire Preserve in the parking lot, just where people park. And then we can do the lower end of Crossan Park and just switch up the address on the bottom. Usually our sign company is pretty good at working with us on stuff.
Are we going to mount, I'm sorry. Are we going to mount them on, like, what are we going to mount them on?
Street signpost.
Okay, something rigid enough that somebody just can't rip it down,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
What about, what about other things such as better cameras or is there a way of securing the bottom entrance by putting a gate or something so that nobody comes in from Flynn?
Stefan, it would be impossible to protect the entire park because they come in through the woods. So by closing the front gate, we're going back to our old policy. I'm sure that will help, but it will not be 100%. One of the one of the main things we have to contend with cameras, next time you're out at the park, look at the back of the brick building down the meadow. You have to have a direct line of sight if you want to use solar. We don't quite have that. If you want to put in wired cameras, you know, anything can be done, but it's going to be expensive. I'm not going to kid you. I'm going to meet with somebody tomorrow just to see what the possibilities are of a solar camera. But, you know, you're talking anywhere from $4,000 from a single camera up to $18,000. Now, I wouldn't do that on my own. You know, if I would certainly bring whatever that turns out to be before the board for discussion.
Mhm.
And Jeff, I know there are less expensive ones. We should all maybe take, you do your research and bring it to us. That's what it is.
Now, one of the things, sir, is we've used the small game cameras with the batteries and the SD card. Sometimes they work wonderfully, but if they're not pointed in the right direction, they're no good. And over the years, I'm just going to say they've been spotted. We've put them high enough, but amazingly enough, they've been destroyed eventually.
I know some, you're talking about some are wirelessly connected to the internet, so they would send images or video to some home source, right? But yeah, so maybe, let's take a look. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we would take a look at that, and then there's a chance we could set it up via an email address where it just pops stuff.
Yeah, saves.
And then, or it could be a text message, which will end up being me at the end of the day, which if it means getting them, I'm willing to do it.
Right. Okay. Sounds good.
So the next line item is the reappointment of a couple of pro members, both Andrea Roberts and Jennifer Albany. So I will read just those out in that order. I make a motion that the board reappoint Andrea Roberts to a 5-year term to the pro, expiring May 31st, 2028. May I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries 3-0. And we've lost our spots to write our votes down. The second motion is I make a motion that the board reappoint Jennifer Albany to a 5-year term to the pro, expiring May 31st, 2028.
Second.
All right, thank you, Stefan. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, motion carries 3-0. All right, and now we've got a bit of some sad news here. We were going to propose a motion, regretfully, that Greg Sachs will be resigning his post as the pro chair. Actually, he was our inaugural pro chair. And I think before we do the motion, I would like to say he's done a fantastic job really getting this group up and running and doing some pretty amazing things in the short time that this group has been in existence. And everybody in this organization in the pro is new. And Greg did an amazing job finding projects, organizing those projects, and making sure they got done. The park itself has been really rejuvenated under his watch. And so just personally, and I think I speak for everybody, I want to thank you, Greg, for the time and energy that you put into this pro group, because you've really done a fantastic job, and it's going to be very difficult to replace you. So thank you. All right, so here we go.
So if I vote nay,
He has to stay. Yeah, if you don't accept the resignation, he's got to stay. All
Well,
right.
thank you. My pleasure. I don't know if you guys, I did have a little update. I don't know if that's in. part of
We'll
this,
get, we'll have an update from you.
All
for
right. All right. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so we're gonna, I guess we have, after we get through the appointments and the resignation, we'll open up to the floor for the update. All right, so with regret, I make a motion that the pro accept the resignation of Greg Sachs from the pro. May I have a second? No, we're not gonna get a second. So no second.
Reluctantly, I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Jim. All right, so any discussion? Now, just again to say what a great job you did over the years and you will be missed.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
If we get somebody with the enthusiasm and care that you have had, we'll be lucky.
good luck in your next venture.
Yeah, I appreciate it,
Greg.
guys. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Greg.
Absolutely.
All
Thank
in
you.
favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, reluctantly passes 3-0. All right, so the next is the appointment of the new board member to a one-year term to the pro. I suppose this is to serve out the final year of, the final year of Greg's term. So I would like to make a motion, but there's two people on who have offered. One is Bob Magnus, and the other is Sam Goodwin. So since there's two, I'll just start with Bob. I'll put his name up and offer it for a vote. If he passes, he passes. If not, we'll move to Sam. So let me start it this way. I would like to make a motion that the board appoint Bob Magnus to a one-year term to the pro expiring May 31st, 2024. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, so I'll throw in some discussion. I know Bob not that well, but whenever I volunteered for something at the township, Bob has always been there. He's enthusiastic. He's always been very helpful. Really easy to talk to and work with. He really led the charge in making the mini libraries, and really an excellent person, and I think would be a good addition to the pro board. So I'm not sure if there's any other comments you want to add to that. No. Okay.
No, Bob Magnus has been wonderful. They've done some other work just recently out of the park. Painting the scraping and painting the fascia boards. Dave mentioned the mini libraries. They installed the posts today, and I would suspect the libraries will go up over the weekend, so we'll be able to fill them on Monday. But I think Bob would be a great candidate.
Okay. All right. So not hearing any other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed say nay. All right, motion carries 3-0. All right, so I think that's the last of the motions. Greg, did you want to walk through your update for us?
Yeah. I just had a few things.
Okay.
So we've ordered educational signage. There's going to be 2 signs that are going to go in the meadows at Crossing Park, and 1 sign's going in the Healing Garden. As far as I forgot, Dawn's not around, so I don't think there's any. I know the little libraries are built and going to be installed soon. I just don't have a timeline on that. The arbor is supposed to be getting going soon, but again, Dawn's kind of taking the reins on that one. Story time at the park will be starting in June. It's going to take place Fridays at 10 a.m. And we are continuing with volunteer gardening days in the Healing Garden. Those are at Fridays at 11 a.m. See what else. Just there was a bluebird box that I guess was hit by the mowers or something at some point, and that's been replaced by a volunteer of ours. Memorial trees, we did some background research on the cost for this year, and they went up significantly. So they're at $500 per tree. It went up $100 for the tree, and then the plaque itself went up a slight amount. Vandalism, we covered that. The only thing I would add to the vandalism is initially we saw one of the kids was riding a dirt bike around all over the park, and that's what triggered us to go follow and see where he was down at that lower pavilion, and that's where we found the fight club going on. So he was the one that was kind of started the trouble and drew our attention. The Canada thistle issue at Goodwin Preserve, we worked with Red Tail Restoration, and they got out there and continued the treatment with a backpack sprayer that we agreed to last fall. They started it in the fall. So he finished up with the amount that we agreed to. He said we were making significant improvement there, and he recommends to continue the treatment during fall and spring. So, that's an ongoing problem. And that's all I had. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
The Planning Commission report, there's no May meeting.
So no report.
So no report.
Okay. Is Paul Agassi's on for the Historic Commission report?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So the Historical Commission and Historical Architectural Review Board had a joint meeting on May 2nd. Some of the information I'm going to convey comes from the meeting, and a couple things have occurred since. The possible cleanup of the Churchill African Cemetery is on hold at the moment. Crystal Crampton of the UAME Church and PA Hallowed Grounds now has the lead with respect to that, and the HC is taking a supportive role. A series of family events have kept her busy, and once a month, until we actually get started, I'm just texting Bob Magnus of the SFA to let him know what's up. Once we meet with Crystal and other UME church members, we will pass on to them the data on individuals who are buried in cemetery. The HC collected and recorded this data. I believe I mentioned at an earlier meeting or in a report that we now have a PDF file for the church record book for the Mount Olivet Church on the Franklin History website, and that site can be accessed through a link on the main township website. We also recently received a scan from Fran Barrett, who is formerly of Kemblesville, of a letter to an elder in the congregation from a person in Philadelphia who had visited the congregation in Kemblesville. Fran and I transcribed it. She did the bulk of the work, and I hope to get this online with the record book when I have the time. We are continuing to do township history interviews. In addition to the interview with Mrs. Hawking, we have an earlier interview with the late Betty Lyle McDowell, which I was not aware of because it was conducted by Alan and Cheryl Jones of New London. Mrs. McDowell lived in Franklin and New London. And then in late April, I conducted an interview with Fran Seipel Barrett and Joan Moat Whiteside, both of whom are long-term friends who grew up in Kemblesville together. Fran has also offered to arrange other interviews with her relatives and friends. The need to transcribe these is expected to result in the acquisition of voice-to-text software, as doing so by hand is going to become too time consuming. And I've begun to talk to Jeff about that at some point. I suspect we won't really attempt to move on that until the fall, just because of time restrictions. We've also been receiving a number of donations from various people. Most recently, some school attendance and grade books from Franklin School that date from the late 1930s to the mid 1940s. And these were given to the township by Mrs. McDowell's family. Fran Barrett will be sharing an old Franklin School Board minutes with us. She has a ledger with them. In terms of historical talks, on May 11th, we co-sponsored with New London Area Historical Society a talk by Jean Pasale on forgotten founding fathers. He talked about the foundations of the American Republic with special emphasis on key roles that 10 men from Pennsylvania and Delaware played, including Robert Morris, John Dickinson, Caesar Rodney, and George Reed. The talk was well attended with some 35 people present, and this talk was one in which New London was covering the speaker's fee. Tonight, as we meet here, Sarah Beth Kohut of our Historical Commission is a co-presenter in a talk on the Grange at the Oxford Area Historical Society. Historical Association. Oxford talks are often recorded, so this talk may be available to their website. I had hoped to attend, but this is an unavoidable conflict. The revisions to the Historic District Ordinance came back from the solicitor with his comments, and he additionally included some improvements. I responded to his questions insofar as I could, but I think we're going to need to get some input from the zoning officer in order to clarify some of these issues. And Jeff and I talked about arranging a meeting at some point on that. We've also been doing work in the Historical Commission on historic resources in the Big Elk Creek State Park. The commission had previously prepared rather quickly, because we need to get it out quickly, a guide to historic ruins in the Franklin portion of the Big Elk for the White Clay Master Plan. Some of that info has now been superseded by additional research and legwork, and I'm working on a revision of that. We are in discussion with individuals in Elk on preparing a more comprehensive and improved historic site guide to the entire park. And I've spoken briefly with Rob Campion, who is the person at DCNR who's responsible for the park, about this. But it was a sort of brief conversation in passing, and Rob and I are going to need to talk further to determine exactly what they might be interested in and what the time frame for that might be. In addition to the folks at Elk, Susan Moon, who is chair of London Burton's Historical Commission, has expressed interest in helping. And from our commission, Dan Latimer and Chuck Phillips are interested in working on the project. Some of us made an initial foray along the Spring Lawn Trail a week or so ago. The group included Mary Gruber of Elk, Emily Kilby, who has extensively researched the lands that were acquired by Willie DuPont, although her main focus is on Fair Hill, and Nan Latimer and I were also there. With respect to going forward on this, we will be holding a general planning meeting with a larger group this weekend in Elk Township. And as an aside to this, I want to just mention that I recently received an email from DCNR, which was sent to stakeholders as an update, that noted that the new Big Elk Creek State Park now has a separate planning process. The expectation is, quote, to develop Big Elk Creek State Park for more dedicated and active recreation, while White Clay Creek Preserve will remain low impact recreation. We have just begun working with a consultant to start the planning process of the new park, so stay tuned for more updates with that as we move ahead, end quote. I assume the shift to a state park will presumably have more significant effects that will be of interest to the township and to our residents in South Franklin. And at the same time, I think this situation may be helpful to the separate Mason-Dixon connectivity project. We also have been involved in helping to prepare an archive on the White Clay Reservoir project in London Track. Tim Barnikoff, a retired UD professor, is working on a possible history of the White Clay Valley, which extends into Franklin. And he was given access to a scrapbook that contains quite a number of clippings on the White Clay Dam and Reservoir project. And working with him, we created a PDF version of the news clipping scrapbook with some 220 articles as separate PDF files. The articles are indexed by date with descriptive file names that indicate the content of the articles. I have a copy of those files for Franklin, as does London Britain's Historical Commission, and Tim is giving a copy to the director of the White Clay Creek State Park in Delaware, who shared the scrapbook with him. And finally, at our last meeting, we approved our annual report, and it's been forwarded to the township. So, are there any questions?
Doesn't seem to be. Thank you.
Well, Paul, if you can keep going, is there an update on the Mason-Dixon?
Yeah, so I'll get that in a minute, but since you just spoke, Stefan, I will note that I took notice of your talking about the planning Fall Fest, or whatever name it will have.
Yep.
And I think we can provide a table with some information on township history and related items.
Yeah, I that'd be great. That'd be great if we can get you, Pro, whatever other good committees. I look at too, it might be a good chance for people who aren't aware of various committees, including yours, that maybe they want to join as well. So that's part of the goal here as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll proceed to the Mason-Dixon Arc Corner Connectivity Project, which basically I'm learning a fair amount about simply by being attending the London Britain Township Historical Commission meetings as a visitor. At a Chester County Historic Preservation Network meeting in mid-March, which I attended and which is separate from that. The focus was on the semi-quincentennial of the founding of the United States, which occurs in 2026. And the celebration of this is known as America 250. Peter Benton of Heritage Strategies, and formerly of John Milner Associates, where he was a main planner, presented info on the Chester County Heritage Tourism Plan that is currently being developed. When I spoke to him after the presentations, he indicated to me in conversation that the committee preparing the county's America 250 plan and the County Planning Commission are interested in the Mason-Dixon Trail and the Mason-Dixon region as a potential tourism focus. Interest at the county level in events for America 250 tends to emphasize locations that will always be available to visitors on a regular basis, such as a site you can walk onto with informational signage that doesn't have to be opened and closed at specific hours, places that are available 7 days a week instead of perhaps on Saturday only. A trail would have the qualities that fit this bill, especially if that trail also had educational and information signage. At London Britain's Historical Commission meeting in April, I learned that the Brandywine Conservancy, which, as we all know, will be managing the Mason-Dixon connectivity project for the township, has had to devote some of its efforts and time to recovering from the damage it suffered to its offices months ago in flooding. And at the same time, also suffered significant personnel losses when both Sheila Fleming, the original expected manager who had experience working on the Brandywine Battlefield plan, which is sort of a model for what we're looking at, and Mila Carter, her successor, as a potential manager for the project, are no longer there. Janine Spears at the County Planning Commission, who was also involved in the Brandywine Battlefield work, remains perhaps the person best informed about the Battlefield project. And I assume that she will be involved to some degree, which is a good thing. London Britain is pushing forward with getting the project started, and was told earlier this month, or late in April, I'm not sure of the exact timing, by the Conservancy, that they had hoped to start in early May. I was a little skeptical about that because they were still in the process of hiring replacements for Ms. Carter and Ms. Fleming, and that just seemed a little too soon. I also learned at the Historical Commission's May meeting that the Conservancy was looking to engage Mr. Benton, who made the presentation back in March, to help manage the project. I think he would be a good and experienced choice to do so. But I also think it's possible that the project could end up a little further delayed because he has not yet completed his work with the county on America 250, so that may affect his time. Nonetheless, it seems to me that the delay will, or at least could, end up making the project better assisted and better connected than we would have been as a result of going forward earlier. So there are some silver linings to this delay, in my view.
Thank you.
I don't really know a whole lot more, but I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Do we have any questions for Paul?
That was great.
Okay, thanks. I think it was a pretty comprehensive overview. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the Franklin Sportsman's Association doesn't have an update this month because it's not hunting season. They'll have an update at the start of their fiscal year in July.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. We're happy to have Aero consultant for us, Andrew Tulea. Andrew, if you don't mind giving us an update on MS4. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Assuming everyone can hear me. First, I'd like to talk about activities that Aero and the township collectively have completed since our last board meeting. So first off, we finalized the township's BMP inspection report, and we're compiling a list of properties that we will recommend sending a letter to requesting maintenance of private stormwater facilities. We also have maybe one additional day of data collection. Last meeting, we had identified that we needed to conduct just some additional mapping efforts to connect underground stormwater pipes, clean up locations of stormwater infrastructure. So we're looking to have that final day completed by the end of the month. We will update the township stormwater map. I would say the biggest event that occurred since the last meeting was that myself, Amanda Fetterman of Aero, and a number of supervisors met with DEP to discuss the township's current permit status and get a sense of what DEP's recommendation was for next steps based upon the fact that the township had previously submitted a TMDL plan that was returned by DEP with comments. The township had not submitted a PRP plan, so we provided a number of questions to DEP prior to the meeting, met with individuals from the Southeast office, and overall, my opinion was that it was a very productive and positive meeting. So we confirmed the township had previously submitted a TMDL plan, but not a PRP plan. We had spoken to the fact that we intend to enter the Big Elk Creek combined project with a number of other municipalities in the Big Elk Creek watershed, as well as PennDOT to fulfill the township's pollution reduction plan requirement. We had previously communicated the total credits that we are looking to purchase as a part of the project to PennDOT, and DEP's recommendation was to finish and submit the pollution reduction plan with the information that we have now, knowing that the PennDOT pollution reduction plan, which contains information about the Big Elk Creek watershed project, is still under review, although in corresponding with PennDOT representatives, they actually met with DEP last week. They received some minor comments on their pollution reduction plan, and they expect to resubmit the pollution reduction plan either this week or next week to address those minor comments. And once their plan is accepted, DEP is going to notify all partnering municipalities and permit holders to the fact that the PennDOT plan for the Big Elk Creek watershed has been approved. But in speaking with DEP, their side recommendation to us specifically was to still move forward and submit our pollution reduction plan, even if it's just submitting it via email to their reviewers, who said that they would provide us comments to get the report in best shape, so that when we submit, whether the PennDOT plan has been approved or not, hopefully our comments would be minimal, or we could eliminate having any comments altogether. So the summary is our guidance from DEP is to submit the PRP plan with as much information about the Big Elk Creek watershed project as possible. We are finalizing that plan. We've been working on that over the past week or two, and we expect to finish our own internal review next week. And again, unofficially submit that to DEP Southeast for any comments that they can provide us. And then for the TMDL plan, based upon that, that is a separate plan, and we communicated the anticipated reduction based upon looking at the Christiana Basin TMDL plan requirements. We've identified the required reductions for that report for the township's responsibility, and as we talked about last meeting, we have a number of projects where we have proposed a number of projects to meet that requirement. We're not tied to moving forward with those projects. Arrow has also proposed a number of alternative projects to also meet that requirement. We also may have the opportunity to partner with other permit holders to do a similar combined project for the TMDL plan to meet that requirement. And so DEP's recommendation was to move forward with that plan, knowing that it's going to take a little bit more effort to identify projects to meet that requirement. We have some initial numbers on what we believe those credit calculations will be for the previously proposed projects. And so we would like to send those to DEP for their initial review within the next few weeks before the end of the month. One comment that DEP had provided the township before was that the township needs to confirm the status of a number of BMPs and their historic approval dates before we can claim credit for some of those that are existing, which will also affect the credits that we can receive if we are proposing to retrofit those facilities. So that is still in the works. But the idea is as well that once the PRP plan and the TMDL plans are approved by DEP, from what DEP has said in our previous meeting, the township will have 5 years to complete those projects. So one of the biggest unknowns was due to the fact that, we started this back in 2017. Was DEP going to give us a shorter time frame to have those actual projects implemented? From talking with DEP, we will get 5 years. The township will get 5 years from the time our PRP and TMDL plans are approved to actually install the projects that we propose to meet our requirements. So the Big Elk Creek Watershed Project is going to be completed prior to that time frame. So the TMDL plan is really what we'll have to focus to implement those proposed projects by 5 years from the time of the TMDL plan approval date. So additionally as well, as I stated, that DEP is open to Arrow and the township sending any questions to them specific to our draft plans and calculations that they can look at before official submission. Once we actually have a draft that we are ready to submit, we're confident that we have potentially minimized any comments that would be received. We will have to put those plans out for at least a 30-day comment period, after which we can then officially submit to DEP. And on top of that, too, we're also looking at the stormwater map based upon our mapping efforts over the past month or two to basically see if there's any private properties that we can parse out from the township's requirement. So we're not sure exactly how much area we can parse out, but if there's any private properties that do not interact with the township MS4, there's a private stormwater system, we may be able to cut down our reduction requirement a little bit. And then so our action items for now until next meeting are to finish at least one day of data collection, finalize the PRP draft and provide any comments about the PRP or provide any questions that we have for the PRP to DEP Southeast office to hopefully get some correspondence from them and how to move forward with some of those questions. We do have the opportunity to correspond with additional vendors for potential partnerships to meet the township's TMDL requirement. I believe that Mr. Donatelli had indicated that Daryl St. Clair from PennDOT passed along one person's name that we could potentially partner with. And we'll also be finalizing our calculations for all proposed projects in the previous TMDL, as well as stream restoration, which Arrow has proposed at a number of sites based upon our updated mapping. And additionally, we will be attending next month's Board of Supervisors meeting to give another update. So that's all I have for now. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Yeah, Andrew, thank you. I just want to make sure I understand the 13,321 pounds per year. We can meet that through a partnership with PennDOT.
Correct.
Okay, and could you? I forget. I don't have it right in front of me. Could you remind me how much that would cost per year to get to that 13,321?
I believe it's approximately $25,000, and it's $1.95 a pound.
Okay.
I apologize, I might not have that right in front of me, but
that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. And then if we are fortunate enough to be able to find partners for the TMDL for the Christina Basin, and it's too early to say we will or will not, but we may. Can you correlate the two between the Big Elk and the Christina Basin and say that it's going to cost us roughly $750,000 a year starting in 5 years from now? $1.95 times $382,912, or is that being too?
PennDOT is a one-time charge. You pay $25,000, you get your credits and you're done.
Okay.
It's not per year.
Okay.
So think of them as one project. That project was $25,000. Project two,
And it's good for 5 years.
and it's good for 5 years. And well, it's not that it's good for 5 years. We have a total the way I simplify it is we have a sediment debt that we are paying back. And we're going to pay $25,000 and that takes care of X amount of sediment debt. And then the next year we're going to do, and we have to do like 10% a year, or 10% at a time. So each year we pay another chunk of money to eliminate that sediment debt. And we have 5 years or whatever it is to get rid of it all.
And the sediment debt for the TMDL could be, using that same $1.95 math, could be 750,000.
Could be.
Okay.
But yeah, could be. It's however much. Yeah.
I mean, it could be $1.25.
But we're buying it.
Yeah.
We're buying this.
Right, right.
We might have another project that might not be 75. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I thought we had projects that were actually, that would take off of that as well, that would count towards.
Right. That's right.
Right. So yeah, just to clarify, the PRP and the TMDL plans will be will have to be redone and resubmitted based upon permits that are issued every 5 years. So we can guess that we'll have a similar reduction the next 5-year cycle. In theory, if we are reducing sediment now, based upon the current land use and current stormwater infrastructure, we'll have to reduce another 10% of our total requirement. So essentially now we are only solving for 10% of our total pollution reduction plan requirement long term. Same thing with the TMDL plan. But yes, we will have to come up with a list of projects every 5 years to meet both plans, whether it's independently, retrofitting existing stormwater facilities in the township, doing alternative projects like stream restoration, or partnering with other permit holders to buy into projects in their jurisdiction, or allowing other municipalities and permit holders to buy into combined projects in Franklin Township. But yes, these are individual projects these are individual plans that are due every 5 years. And we have to come up with a number of projects to meet that requirement every 5 years. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, it's 10%. We have to hit our 10% quota every 5 years, or is it 10% every year?
So essentially, you have to do a calculation of your current sediment pollution, and you have to remediate 10% of that sediment pollution every 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Andrew, in theory, as you go along, that 10% shrinks because every 5 years you're shrinking a bigger chunk.
Yes. In theory, it should go down. And now that modern stormwater regulations are in play, where if you add impervious surface or you disturb a certain amount of land, you have to put in a stormwater facility to provide treatment, which was not the case 30, 40 years ago. So in theory, it should go down, but we are looking, they are going to issue new requirements for permit holders during the next 5-year cycle. So it could change for better or for worse.
Any other questions for Arrow? All right. Thank you very much. Good update. Nice to see some progress getting made here.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, we'll move on to business, and we will start with our solicitor's report. Guy, are you with you? You are there.
I am, and thank you for allowing me to participate in this fashion. I have my notes on my phone. I have some documents on my personal laptop, and you on the screen. So I'm going to be referring to all three. So with respect to the MS4 and PennDOT project, we've completed our obligations with respect to providing a full package of an executed agreement and resolution, in addition to the other collateral documents required, to Mr. St. Clair at PennDOT. The only thing I'm waiting for now, excuse me, is the countersigned documents and confirmation that PennDOT has the approvals that it needs to move ahead. So unless there are any questions with respect to that particular initiative, I think we've done what we've needed to. Township has done what the township has needed to do. And when the documents are returned, we'll be off and running. I will say that the language that your board approved, which added additional questions, additional protections to townships, has been co-opted by other townships. I had indicated to Mr. Eastburn that I was going to volunteer that language to some other townships, and they have started to use it. So that's a strength in numbers, I suspect.
Can we get any licensing fees?
Well,
That wording wasn't free.
no, it wasn't, but believe me, I get back double from my colleagues in other areas. So it's the same dollar bill that passes around and around, I think. The Mount Olivet update, we have received back from the solicitor of the township on Monday, the executed county approved Mount Olivet documents. I was hoping to have them back earlier, but I just got them at the beginning of this week. I have forwarded them to Mr. Eastburn, and what I'd like to do now is advertise the last trail ordinance along with the now acquired bridge to complete that project. So I'll be looking for a head nod from the board to allow me to advertise and bring before you in your June meeting an ordinance to close the loop, so to speak.
We're all nodding our heads.
Okay, very good. Lexington Point, escrow release number 2. I have spoken to Vince Pompo, and I apologize for him not being available this evening, but he has reviewed all of the escrow release documents as it relates to the second release. We don't see, and I agree with him, any reason to hold up on that release. So I don't know if that is a motion or an action item. I'm checking my other materials, but if the board is so inclined, your legal team is suggesting that escrow be released.
So I have a motion in front of me that I can read. So I suppose now would be the time to do so. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I would like to make a motion that the board approve the Lexington Points escrow release number 2 from bond number 30145589 as reviewed and recommended by Stan Corbett of ACOM in his recommendation letter dated May 9th, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to follow up with Guy. I'm looking at the letter from probably Stan. With the history of the builder and the history of this project, I just want to make sure you are comfortable, and I assume Stan is, obviously, because he's in favor of it, with the idea of releasing anywhere from 50 to 80%, in most cases 80%, sometimes probably 100%, for things that are not yet 100% complete. Backfilling of whatever, 100 primary septic tank, but this was done, but this was not. So we're recommending releasing 80%. And I would normally be fine with a percentage of completion methodology, but the only question I have is the history of this builder. Are we really comfortable releasing 80% if there has been issues in the past?
I think we are. Your legal team and your engineering team have put their heads together with respect to the amount of the bond release, and we're comfortable, and the engineer is comfortable, which is equally as important as our view. I understand your reticence but I think we're moving along with this project better than we ever have. So we're comfortable, and it's the only thing I can say. Did I lose your sound?
No, we have a comment in the room.
Yeah. There's a microphone there. Is it on?
Hello?
Yeah. Okay.
My name is Robert Meyer. I'm a former supervisor back when Lexington Point started. I agree with, is that the solicitor? I agree with him that, and I'm also a home inspector. I'm trying to retire. But I've inspected quite a few of Keystone Homes. The owner is Jeff Rutt, I believe. A lot of experience. We had many problems with him from the get-go, starting with when he tried to put a 700+ foot deep well to service a community. We were able to defeat him on that and cause him to do public water. The development fell silent for years because I believe the market turned right after that. And the bottom line is, I agree with, I guess, Stephen, who questions his integrity. So, and I just happen to run in that development. I live in Quail Hill, and I've seen McGovern down there doing, I assuming they're doing the septic treatment plant, the sewage treatment plant. So I would just use a lot of caution with that guy. I've inspected dozens of his homes, always shortcomings. He cuts every corner possible. And he's not a very, when he first approached the township back in the late 90s, early 2000s, he came off as Mr. Religion, Mr. Builder of the Year. And I happened to do some research. He was Builder of the Year in a magazine that he was owner of, things like that. So I would be very cautious with anything he does. I know the street, it's just the original paving. It's been in there for, I guess it's 20 years now. And I do see a large pile. I thought I heard him say something about soil and whatnot. There's a massive pile at the end of one of the streets. So I would just want to put my 2 cents in and be very cautious with him. And I would hope 100% would be done before I released any money to that guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, so I'm not sure when you were a supervisor, but late 90s, early 2000s, and this has been a problem for every board that has been in existence since then, decades and decades.
Geologist who worked for Philly Suburban in here.
Yeah.
We heard about the well, and we were fortunate to get an ordinance passed prior to that. The 700-foot well was causing drawdowns. And wells, our ordinance now, that has changed. Requires somebody trying to do that to test wells within a mile.
Yeah. Okay.
We did it before a mile, the wells were dropped.
Wow.
And of course, his objective, and I told him from the get-go, even before, and I had heard about it by doing some digging and talking to some of these people. There was a hub from Chester Water Authority right down the street. And I suggested that to him from the very beginning. And his comment, well, I got a line up and other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As opposed to ruining everybody's well within the month.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know.
Okay. No, I understand. All right. Well, thank you. Okay, so with that, we need to take this to a vote. As stated, our engineer, who has been very vigorous up to this point on this development, and our attorney don't see a reason to not move forward with the escrow release at this point. Number 2, any further discussion?
I will vote in favor, but based on the confidence I have in Stan Corbett and our legal team.
Mm-hmm.
And remember too, there's still going to be close to $700,000 in escrow. after this, if we approve it.
Okay. And I think at some point, one thing that I would like to see is, and maybe we have a discussion with Stan about the progress made at the site. I don't think we've really had an update immediately. So June meeting. Okay, great. All right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries 3-0.
And the only other item I want to update the board on has to do with the matter that Mr. Eastburn identified at roughly 7:15, 7:20 with respect to certain easements that we'd like to have with two property owners to take some water from one place to another. I had looked at this about a month ago, I would say, provided a form of easement for modification and submission to the property owners. This is this is a matter which you want to have agreement with your property owners. They will be stakeholders and there will be easements put on their property. Nothing unusual. As a matter of fact, the easement form that I use is the same easement form I use when I work with Aqua. So it is a fairly conventional easement which permits the installation of a water line, and in this case for stormwater. The property is then restored. There is a temporary easement that's relinquished once the construction is done, and all that remains is the surface of the ground unchanged with a pipe underneath it. So the concept that Mr. Eastburn and I were discussing would be first to meet with the property owners, inform them, let them know exactly what we're thinking of doing, providing them with negotiable forms of easements, encouraging them to get advice from anyone that they trust. And then when the board is prepared, executing and recording those easements. And of course, when the property owners are comfortable with that, executing and recording those easements, and then having the work bid and performed. So it's not an unusual thing to do. It's one that's done cooperatively in my experience, and we'll be submitting forms of these easements to the board as we move forward with the property owners and getting them comfortable with the process.
All right, thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Oh, thank you.
Guy.
Thank you, Guy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next up is the Franklin Sportsman's Association hunting license extension for 20.
Actually,
Oh, wait a minute.
yeah, we got Bob up.
Sorry.
Do you want to resume?
Yeah, next meeting, can we have the podium in front so we don't make people walk around the table?
Yes.
So podium or standing there,
Yes.
or a small table.
Just flip that around. You'll be fine.
Yeah, or flip it around.
Yeah.
It's just, we just want something, we don't want to have to make people walk around. Thanks.
I don't care. I've been in contact with Jeff about the street trees in Quail Hill and brought him up the original plan. I don't think I have much chance here of getting what I want because your ordinance regarding street trees beat the ash borers in my development. The ordinance was passed last August, which is when the ash borers started to attack all the trees. So your ordinance beat the ash borers, and they have literally killed probably 40%, Jeff, or more of those trees.
I don't know percentage wise, but I would say
few.
approximately 30 trees. 30 trees approximately.
Okay, then it's more, because I believe there was 50 on the original site plan, and I discussed it with Jeff, and he pointed out the ordinance that you passed, putting the onus on the homeowners to take care of the trees. My concern is some of them are totally dead. Some of them are trying to make a comeback, but there's a tremendous amount of dead branches that protrude over the street. I don't have any little ones, but a lot of people in that development do. And of course, there's no warning when a tree branch will fall down and hurt somebody. And my main concern is, God forbid, one of those branches hits my wife's new car. It would be my fault because I didn't bring it to the board's attention. And Jeff also pointed out to me that you do have in your ordinance guidelines that the township manager can notify said property owners that it is their responsibility to address the trees on their properties. So I would appeal to you to get those ordinances or the notices out to the prospective property owners. To the individual property owners. Jeff can readily identify them. It appears to be, unfortunately, one guy has about 9 of them, and then several other properties have them. Some down in the circle where I am, the trees are hanging on. I'd be more than willing to take care of mine. They won't be missed where I'm at because it's mostly a wooded area. And if the property owners take care of the trees, take them down, is there any opportunities for the township to fund replacements? I know it would be an expense, and what would have to happen if the property owners are only required to take the trees down or prune them back, which would be ridiculous to prune a totally dead tree, and might as well just take it down. I mean, they're dead to the point where the bark's falling off. So they're dead, they're X trees. To replant them, and in the development plan, there's positioned so they're kind of catty corner to each other. And if you go into Quail Hill development, you'll see the original trees. The development is a little over 30 years old. And it's absolutely gorgeous on Partridge Way up to Quail Drive and then Quail Drive around. Some of the trees on the corners have died. But then coming from Quail Hill down to the circle, they're pretty much all going to be dead, and it won't have the nice look. The theory behind putting the trees in, oxygen generation, shade for people to play on the street and whatnot, and they are on the original plan. But I could not find anything in my research that would require the township to replant them, especially in light of the ordinance you passed and putting it all on the homeowners.
Yeah, so I don't think we have, so I'm looking at the ordinance, maybe I'm reading it wrong. It says 9/21/2016, not last August. Ordinance 2016-08.
And the one I saw was dated, the one Jeff sent me was dated August of 22.
In the upper right-hand corner,
Oh,
Dave, it
okay.
has August 2nd, 2022, so it may have been tweaked at that point.
So we might have reworded some things in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so again, with the township ordinances, we put the onus on the landowner, property owner for tree maintenance. So for example, the street that I'm on, all the homeowners are now trimming trees back because they're overhanging the road. So as far as taking care of the trees on your street, again, the ordinance is pretty clear. It's up to the homeowners to take care of the trees on your street. I don't see where we would start replanting trees. I don't know if we have, I don't believe that would be within our authority. I think it would my concern is it might end up opening a bad precedent.
I won't say anything. I won't say anything.
Yeah, so that would be the larger concern. I mean, I'm speaking one of 3 tonight, but we have four other supervisors. My concern would be, I understand your position. I'm a homeowner as well, and I have trees on my property. But would we then begin to open up the doors for every resident who has a problem with their tree on an easement to have it replanted at the township's expense? And I'm not sure if that's a position we want to put the township in.
If I may interrupt real quickly, the township had been taking care of the trees for years. They came in and pruned them. There were some overhanging branches, and And I just assumed, apparently incorrectly, that it was going to continue on. And then the ash borer. So apparently that ordinance, I'm guessing, Jeff, that the cost became prohibitive for you guys to do that. I know you were in Quail Hill many times.
Change of board too, Bob, different philosophies.
Right.
Bob, does Quail Hill have a homeowners association?
No, thank goodness. We do have recorded deeds that homeowners association, they actually have, we have a corporation that I encourage the other residents to form back when the development started, because the developer tried to bail and dump lots and we were exposed, as was the township, because the developer didn't have enough money and the bank only gave X number of dollars to complete the project, which were not nearly enough to do that. And I don't know if you remember, Jeff, we formed a Quail Hills homeowner. I forget what it was called, but I hired an attorney and incorporated us. And we worked in conjunction with the township. And the big sticking point was the cost of putting the roads in. When the township had to pay prevailing wages. So what we did was we, as a corporation, bid for the streets, and then the township reimbursed us, and we saved well over $100,000. There wasn't enough money. We couldn't get any more money out of the bank. So that's how we worked it out to get the street trees and the roads in. Significant, because we bid it out as we're just an association, a corporation. And then we worked out a deal with the solicitors that we would bid the job out. I think it was Brandywine Paving Company.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we bid it out. It could have been a couple $100,000 cheaper. It was significant because, again, the township had to pay prevailing wages. Now that's how we would get it done. So it was very successful. The trees, we even got a couple bus stops thrown in.
There was like, when I read this ordinance earlier, I remember where I live on North Creek Road, the biggest fear I have is that one of these big trees is going to fall right on North Creek and I'm going to be responsible for everything. So.
Yeah, you don't know. Well,
Yeah.
The worst thing is the trees pretty much stay for quite a while. It's the branches. You know, you have a 70-foot tree, branches that big around.
Yeah.
My wife actually fought me. I had to take down 2 dead ones back in the back end of my property. It's all woods. And my wife's a tree lover. I said, "Hon, they're dead. They're not going anywhere." "Well, why do you have to take it down?" I said, "I don't want a branch falling on me and killing me back there." And still didn't swear. And I said, "It could hurt the dogs." "Oh, we'll get it down."
Good thinking. There was, when I was on the board the last time, and we were talking about MS4, I don't remember, but there was a lady here that from an organization, and she was basically saying, John, I don't know if you remember this, but they were willing to like give out trees. There's two women that were helping us out then for this MS4, TM, whatever, all this other stuff that we had to do.
Probably Shane Morgan.
Yeah, it could have been her. And if I recall, that name rings a bell. If I recall,
were they substantial or were they like little?
I don't. Do you remember that at all? Like they were willing to give us. I don't know if it was willing to give us trees to meet our obligation for MS4, or if it was they were willing to give us trees. Like I was thinking, like I'll give her a call and maybe I can get some trees from her.
Does she work with an organization like Brandywine Conservancy with any of those guys?
What I can do is I think it's a White Clay Watershed. And Bob, I'm happy to give you her name and contact information tomorrow. I can put you directly in touch with her.
Yeah, the problem I see, first of all, well, you have the authority to force the removal, but that only requires them to cut them down and to replant them in the same location, had to get the stumps out. And that would be a cost. So whether they can just do it, move 5 feet this way, 5 feet that way, I don't know. Because the roots will eventually die.
Again, from not to get in front of the board, but I don't see anything, and I would rely on Guy Donatelli too for his input. I'm not aware of anything that would compel us to make the residents plant anything back. Normally, we would look to the homeowners association to enforce that if they had one.
It's really more, we want to address public safety and access.
Correct.
Right.
And
So-
that's why I'm here to get rid of them now.
Right.
Before
So-
somebody gets
and-
hurt.
Right. And so the public safety and access, it's if you have trees that are unsafe, that's when we say, okay, you guys need to trim your trees back, or, you know, trim your limbs if those are in problem. But we're not going to compel landowners to replant.
Right.
Right.
Jeff,
Yeah,
would you
we don't
have
have
some
any target.
contacts to get reasonable prices for these people?
If I could put an exclamation point on that, Mr. Chairman, that this ordinance is not a vegetative buffer ordinance or a screening ordinance. It's a public safety ordinance. And if a property owner wants to replant trees and subject him or herself to additional maintenance and removal obligations, I think they can do that, but it's not a matter of compulsion by any township ordinance.
And Bob, to answer your question, I can give you a couple names of companies. One of the companies that we've been using successfully that is reasonable is Pro Tree Service. I can put you in contact with one of their estimators.
Well, could you put that in your notice? Rather than, I kind of don't want to get involved. I don't want to be the guy. My wife says enough people hate me already.
No, yeah.
As far as the suggestion, when you put out the notice requiring them to take down these trees or address it, maybe if you include in that notice a couple of options for people to call.
Is it, you know, I guess my concern here is it obvious that we will require residents to address these trees? Meaning, is it an obvious safety hazard here's my point. I don't want to be compelling a landowner who doesn't need to have their trees addressed to address their trees. So how do we go about deciding which trees are an imminent safety concern and those who are not?
Not being an arborist, Dave, just looking at them, looking at the bark, and when they have no leaves on them at all, it becomes an issue. And I've looked at some of them, Bob. I don't know whether you can back me up or not, but I don't know if it's woodpeckers, if it's the ash borers, but you can see holes going up.
Yeah.
Well, the woodpecker, as soon as they're dead, the woodpeckers
Yeah.
will come right in.
But, you know,
Start working.
So I guess here's my question is, have we done this in the past where we have sent letters to people who have dead trees on their properties to compel them to take the tree down?
in my memory, only one time. And that was on Churchill Road. That was not in a development.
Yes, I guess my concern is it's not that I'm against this. I think it's a good idea, right? You identify a tree that needs to come down, let's take it down. My question is, what is our method of doing so? Is it, and it's kind of the point of, well, I'm not an arborist either. So who's the arborist who says, okay, this tree needs to come down, that tree does, or do we send a letter to the residents stating there's been some concern with your tree. We encourage you to inspect your trees to make sure that they're in safe such and such order. And if not, please remove them.
Or do we just give
another concern also is when branches have been falling, and of course nobody goes out and picks them up. Cars drive over them, powder them up, and they're going to end up in your storm sewers and cause you problems there. I don't know what your schedule is, but I've seen your people out there dredging out because they all service infiltrators.
Yeah.
So I understand the concept. You want to keep the debris out of there. So when branches fall, people just drive over them and crush them, and you're going to get more debris in there. Then that could cause further problems additionally.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point?
Please do.
So the abatement notice provided in the ordinance places the obligation and the right of the township manager, in this case, our operations manager, to send these notices. And when Mr. Eastburn and I first began discussing this issue, I specifically wanted to know, has an arborist looked at it? What resources do you think you might need in order to send these abatement notices? And I do not think it would be unreasonable to allow your township operations manager to secure at least someone who could go out and take a look. I mean, if the tree is dead, it's obviously poses a potential risk of harm to the public. But it may very well be something the board wants to consider as far as providing a resource to Mr. Eastburn so he could do it without having anybody second guess him in that regard.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Guy. Once I have something in hand from them, I can work, if appropriate, I can work on a letter to those specific residents with the zoning officer. And then before sending that out, if the board wishes, I'll certainly give you an advance copy so you know what's going on. But the idea is, to try and take a friendly approach with what we're trying to do, not, not be overbearing.
So here's another question. After that is, assuming that's the path we're going to go, what happens when, I'm saying, I don't know how many neighbors you have with them, including yourself. If there's 10, what happens when 5 of them say, my tree's small, it's not bothering anybody. It's not, even if it falls over, it's going to fall on my lawn. It's not a danger.
So
They're all 25 to 35 feet.
Okay. All
tall.
right.
There's no.
I mean, looking at this
absolutely
picture, I can
no-
see, I only have one picture to reference, and there's a big tree, little tree.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I mean, actually, I have none on my property, so.
Oh, okay.
So the ordinance.
Because I'm a cul-de-sac, we have very few trees
Yeah.
in there. It's unfortunately, it affects one resident more than others.
But to answer the question is, we will do it for them and charge them back.
Right. Oh, really? Okay. It says it in there. Okay.
The ordinance is quite clear.
Yeah, okay.
As your solicitor mentioned about the public safety, the ordinance is very clear on that. So you could even include a copy of the ordinance with
Yeah.
your notices.
Yeah.
And this isn't you guys being heavy-handed. This is a public safety issue.
Yeah.
Sure.
And anybody with children should realize right away that, oh my goodness, I never noticed.
I mean, I'm surprised just in general that with this widespread problem, you have a lot of trees that line this road, and you're the only resident in here saying all the trees in our neighborhood are dead. I'm surprised that I'm not hearing from more residents that hit it.
Because everybody's looking at their stupid smartphone.
Yeah.
Has anyone?
Nobody's walking around.
Yeah.
Face from
Yeah.
looking at what their cat did
Yeah.
and what beer did somebody of your friends drinking.
Okay. Yeah.
What's up anymore?
So it'll be interesting to see the response.
Has anyone, Bob, taken care of the dead tree? Anyone?
Pardon me?
Has anyone taken care of a dead tree on the lane?
No.
No one. Okay.
The only question I kind of have is this setting a precedence too, in the sense that we are now going to police all neighbors, all roads that have dead trees? Because I'm sure there are a lot of dead trees in Franklin Township. And unless somebody, no offense, complains, we're going to let them we're going to let them be. But as soon as somebody complains, we're going to send out a letter.
Well, I think that's,
I believe that comes from, and your solicitor would probably know more, if your neighbor, for instance, had a dead tree that you consider dangerous, you would have, as far as I know, you would have to send them an email or a certified letter saying, hey, you have a tree there that's dead with branches hanging over my property. I would like you to consider removing it. And then I guess it would have to go to litigation if they drew their line in the sand. I don't know. The solicitor would.
So the real risk, there's a practical policy issue. You have an ordinance with respect to trees that could be considered nuisances within your right of way. and you impress that obligation on the property owners. Not only would you be setting a precedent, but you would be enforcing your own ordinances. So it's not as if you're doing something that isn't codified to begin with. So I would be less concerned about that. Number one. Number two, with respect to trees, of which a township has notice that could cause harm, there could be liability on the township if harm is then caused. If I'm driving down the street and a tree on a township right-of-way falls on my car, and there's no notice that there's a problem with that tree or it's a dangerous condition, there's no liability. But as soon as you identify a tree where you think there is a potential for harm, you start to cross over into that potential liability issue. So my advice would be enforce your ordinance, enforce the ordinance that you have. It's a good one and it makes sense. And it can be done in a deliberate way and less an issue between two neighbors, more of an issue of enforcement of your ordinances.
Thank you, Guy. Yeah, and I think the other piece too, Stefan, when you're saying how it's, we don't do anything until someone complains. That's usually when we do something, right? That's usually how we find out there's something wrong. Is residents come in and say, "Hey, there's a problem on my street." I don't mean, and to say complain is the wrong word. People raise their concerns. So I don't know if that's usually the modus operandi. That's how we find these things.
Or if Jeff was driving around and he saw something like plainly visible.
Well, it appears to me that the ordinance only addresses trees in the right of way.
That's
So
Right.
you don't have to drive around looking at other people's property.
That's
Well, I think doesn't like if one property line, if your tree falls on somebody else's property, it's homeowners, maybe homeowners would cover. I don't even know.
Correct. And we have had those phone calls and the residents have been advised, go talk to your neighbor. It's a civil matter.
That's when we don't get
Right.
involved.
And while our solicitor's here, would the question for him, it says the township right away, does that include roads or are we just talking about subdivisions?
So am I taking legal questions from members of the general public? Mr. Chairman, or would you like me to answer that?
Is there any doubts? I'm actually interested in the answer to that. I don't know if that's okay. Is there are we setting an unhealthy precedent? But
No.
I'm okay. I'm okay with you answering that question, of course.
All right. So you've got to define what right of way you're talking about. If you're talking about a cartway, 16 feet from a line dead center, something along those lines, there shouldn't be any trees in there.
Right.
So practically speaking, those rights of ways would perhaps be, sewer rights of ways or other forms of township rights of ways unrelated to the issue we're discussing here. It's no different than a sidewalk. When I was addressing it with Mr. Eastburn, if I've owned property, I know people who have owned property and there's a sidewalk on the right of way and the ordinance requires that property owner not only to maintain the sidewalk, but to install one if an ordinance is passed. It's no different than that, I think. And I don't want to overcomplicate it. Quite frankly, it just seems to me this sort of issue is more designed to address that kind of problem.
Yeah,
So
the right of way in our development is 25 feet from the center line. So that would encompass these trees.
I see. Do we have any other discussion for this comment or on this topic? Okay, so the path forward, we're going to do what? We're going to look into having an arborist. Look at
Yes,
these trees and make some recommendations for letters to the homeowners on this street.
yes, just for transparency's sake, I'll be contacting Pro Tree Service.
Sure.
I found them to be the most
fine.
reasonable.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Bob, for
Thanks,
bringing
Bob.
that to us.
Thank you, gentlemen. And ladies.
Okay,
Okay.
so now we have.
Yes, all right. The FSA hunting license extension for 2023-2024 season is resolution number 2023-07. I'd like to make a motion that the board approve resolution number 2023-07 for the FSA hunting license renewal for the 2023-24 hunting season.
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Dave. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 3-0. It's approved. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so that brings us to the end of our meeting. So I will open it up to public comments. This public comment may include any comments on anything attendees may want to share with the board or the public. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township. Do we have any public comment? All right.
My name is John Arbach. I'm from Franklin.
Do you want to sit over at the?
You can pull up your seat and just turn it around.
That's true. That's true too.
I think we get rid of this one.
I don't know. Where is it? Oh, it's right there. It's holding the paint can.
My name's Sean Auerbach, Franklin Township resident. This issue is related to something Stefan brought up in the beginning of the meeting. Related to gaining some interest from excess cash. I think what you probably need to do is study the annual cash flow map and take a look at what is available at various times during the year. Certainly the reserve fund at $250,000 usually sits dormant, so that could be certainly included. So it just needs some study. You can't put the whole amount in there. It's just let's see, just a quick note on North Creek Road paving, which belongs to PennDOT. Late last year, they paved part of North Creek Road, and all they did was pave a strip on each side. And it is the worst false economy that you could do because now the center of the road is coming apart. So what happened? Yeah, you guys both live on that road. So every time I drive it regularly in the path that I use. And you eventually end up grinding up all the new road that you put in anyway. So it's just really the worst false economy. So just something you could lean on PennDOT. Just an observation.
John, we've talked about it before in here, and Dave, and I think we tried to call John, our representative at the house.
Lawrence, yeah.
John Lawrence, yeah, and but he didn't have any desire to any of his political capital he wanted to spend on North Creek Road,
Including internet service.
including internet service on North Creek Road. There's none of that either.
It's too bad that you couldn't get this thing fixed during the Lawrence Pavomania back in 2022 when he ran for election, when he paved 896 and Chesterville Road and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's too bad he didn't include this one.
Yeah.
Just one other, and Bob Magnus is a great choice for this approach. I mean, I've known him for 12 years. He's a great community. He's got a history of community service.
Mm-hmm.
He's a steward of the lands. He lives across the street from Bamshire. He's planted ornamental flowers over there. He's done a lot of good things. So an excellent choice for that. So just one other comment about trees. That was an interesting discussion on trees. I have a large wooded area, maybe a good 6-7 acres of mature woods, and it's dying. So branches are falling down all the time, to the point that I don't even, when it's blowing wind, I don't even go out there. If it's raining or it has rained the day before, I don't go in the woods. So, yeah. All right, that's really all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. All right, so with that, I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:55 PM. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Stefan. Any discussion? No. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 3-0. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Melissa.
Thank
So-
you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.